All right, so this is my final presentation on leadership. First thing, I want to start off with the intro to leadership class. The two biggest takeaways I took away from that class were number one, when we talked about are leaders born or are they taught? It was kind of interesting to look at the different ideas behind that on whether people are born leaders or they can be taught leaders. I tend to think that it's a combination of both. You definitely can be taught how good leadership styles and good leadership methods, but there's just some people are born with a more innate sense of being a better leader than other people are more capable of it. The other thing we talked about, one of the big things that we took away was transformational leadership versus transactional leadership. And that was basically talking about the fact that, transactional leadership is using people as a means to an end. It's just using them to get what you want, to get where you need to go. Whereas transformational leadership is really investing into what you do and the people who are following you. Next was team building and leadership. Some takeaways with that from the SMART goals. I think it's very important to set goals for yourself and set goals that are attainable in different aspects of your life. So that was a cool thing that we did. I think I can take away from that. The Abilene paradox and groupthink were two different leadership obstacles that people often run into. I think it's important to kind of be able to identify those, be familiar with those in order to avoid that in our leadership. And then finally, this class, some leaders I took away from especially were, number one, Jim Collins, his idea of the 20-mile march. Just the idea that just being consistent. Consistency is key within your leadership and within a company. And I just love the quote, greatness is the lever that we use to break into the world and change it. And using that as a means to bring change and bring consistency and bring success into the workplace. And he also spoke about how greatness is a choice. It's not based off of luck. It's not based off of circumstances. It's a conscious choice that you make. Joseph Grenny talked about crucial conversations, which I kind of struggle with approaching those and really just taking criticism and avoiding or looking at that as a way to grow and learn. William Ury talked about when you're dealing with people, always be hard on the problem, but be soft on the person. Really separate those two. Don't associate the person with the problem. Try to separate those. And the last one was, if you do make a mistake, don't shy away from that. Own up to it. The first mistake is the problem. The second mistake you make, covering it up, makes a disaster. So those are some things that I took away from that. And then also for my interviews and different things, first of all, leadership is influence. And if you're a leader who's full of character, people are going to respect that and you're going to have more influence over people, which leads you into leadership is relationships. So the more you invest in your people, the more they trust you, the more they're going to be willing to follow you. And you need to understand your employees and how they work. Criticism is what takes you from A to B. Criticism may be hard to take, but it's important not to take that personally and understand that it's something you can learn from, and it's what takes you from one point, learning and growing and going to the next point. Also, if you want to lead, you must serve. Servant leadership is huge. Christ was the perfect model for that, and we see that people are still following him 2,000 years later. So service is huge, and that's how you get people to buy into what you're doing and respect you. Because if you're not willing to do what they're doing, then they're not going to be willing to follow you. And then anyone can bring a problem, but you have to bring the solution. So it's easy to come in and complain and talk about stuff and about what you want to do, what you don't want to do. But if you don't have a solution for that, people aren't going to take you seriously. So make sure if you do complain or you do bring a problem to the floor, always bring 3 solutions. And then finally, there is no destination. Leadership is not something that you get to a certain point and you're done learning, you're done growing. It's something that you're always going to be investing into. You're always going to be learning. You're always going to be growing. And the moment you get complacent in that is the moment that you start to be inefficient and you really start to kind of lose credibility. So I think that's important. And then one final quote by JFK says that leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. And I think that's so true. In the journey of leadership, you're never going to stop learning. You never should stop learning.